Hi everyone, welcome to FX PhD. This is the After Effects Broadcast Design course, week 9. I'm Tim Clapham. This week we're going to carry on from where we left off last week. So first of all, let's just go to After Effects and have a look how far we'd got. Okay, here we go. You can see a RAM preview of the animation we worked on last week. So what we're going to do is carry on extending this. So let's have a look at the first thing we're going to do. So this is the next logo we're going to work with. It's actually made up of 3 different logos. I'll just pull it apart so you can see. Okay. So what I've done is I've taken this and I've set up a new Illustrator file with each of these on its own layer. This is that scene. As you can see down here, we've got a blue, green and a red logo. When combined using add mode, then that will all be white, and we can kind of split the different layers in After Effects to get the kind of multitude of colours in between where all the mixing occurs. So the first thing I'm going to do is take this and import it into After Effects. Here we are in After Effects. You can see I've imported the Illustrator file as a comp. I'm not going to use the comp, so I'm just going to delete that. And I'm going to use these 3 layers. Sorry, these 3, well yeah, they're layers from Illustrator, but they're separate documents essentially now. So let's put these on the timeline. I'm just going to drag them in above everything else. I'm actually just going to move my camera to the very top so I know where that is. I want them as 3D layers. I want them to continually rasterize. So now we just need to set up the position for them. I don't want to animate all 3 layers. I'm just going to parent the red layer and the blue layer so that they're linked to the green layer. This way I only need to animate the green layer, and obviously if I move it around, the other layers follow suit. Currently in the animation, as we get to the end of the timeline, the whole screen bleaches to white. So at that point there, we can transition into the new logo. So the first thing we need to do with that is just position it in the right place. So essentially there's a white part of the logo that's in the same place. So I'm just going to do that for you, and then I'll give you the coordinates. I'm just going to jump back first of all so I can actually see myself positioning it. I've positioned the green logo where I think it should go. Obviously the others have followed because they're parented to it. So the position values for that are 18 on X, minus 20 on Y, and minus 228 on Z. That actually brings it a little bit nearer in front of the other logo. The other thing I've done, if you notice, is I've just set the composite mode to add on all of these. So now where they're blending together, we're getting pure white. I'm going to set the 3 layers up at this point in time, but then I'll trim them to the end point here where the transition is going to take place. It's just that if I try and do it there, I'm not going to be able to see what I'm doing, so I can just get the look of it right and then move it into position. So select these 3 layers first of all, and then left square bracket to trim them to that point. I'm going to split the layers apart so that we get the colour combinations where all the mixing occurs, as I spoke about before, but what we need to make sure is that the part that we're zooming out from is pure white. So first of all, let's just select the top red layer, and I'm going to adjust the Y value. So at 172.5, I'm just going to set this to be kind of 60 pixels different. Okay, so you can see we're getting some blending occurring already, which is cool. And I want to do the same on the blue, but in the opposite direction. Okay, if we just solo those 3 layers for a moment, you can see that we still have a nice white bit here in the middle that we can pull back from. And then as we kind of pull back, we can bring all the colours together so the logo becomes more legible. I'm going to key the position for the blue, and the red layer at the beginning here, then jump forward 8 frames. And then I'm going to just set the Y value so these all line up. If I remember correctly, I think that was 172. So I'll just do that for both of these. I'm just going to select the first keys, press F9 so it eases out of that. Now if we just scrub, you can see the logo comes together. It creates some quite nice kind of chromatic aberration almost. What I want to do with the position there is I'm going to add that springy expression to them so that they kind of overshoot and eventually rest into place. Hopefully that will look a little bit more interesting. If you remember, we used the same script, or the expression should I say, we used that in an earlier class. So to add the expression, I'll click the word position. I've got it on the clipboard so I can just click paste, and I have that expression on the red layer. What I want to do is just go in and check the parameters because I might want to change something. Before I do that, let's just scrub through, make sure it's working as it should be. Okay, yeah, you can see it's overshooting slightly. So we're going to need to do this for the blue layer as well, but let's get the expression right before we apply it to both layers. So in this expression, the only things you need to really adjust are these variables at the bottom, and I'm going to change amplitude to 0.1, so it's a slightly higher amplitude. Frequency 2, so it doesn't happen quite as often, and decay 1, so it doesn't decay quite so quickly. Now you can see the amplitude's higher because the red layer is moving further. At the moment our camera is still zooming in towards this. This isn't what we want to do, but we can adjust that in a bit. I'm quite happy with that expression, so just clicking in there selects it. I can copy, fold this up, or click the blue layer and paste it into there. Now it should be happening with both layers. Yeah, all looks cool. Okay, so I think the basic animation for this is set up, so we just need to position it at the right point in time. So let's move to the end here where it's pure white. I'm going to just extend the main comp. I'm just going to set it for 10 seconds for now. Pull the camera out. I'm just going to see what we've got on the camera. Okay, so we've still got keys continuing after that. This is where it's all been brought in from the 3D application. Unsolo these 3 layers. I'm actually going to hide those for a moment, so we're just working with the comp as it was before. So that's the point that I want the new logo to appear, which is cool. It's all white, so let's zoom in and we can get away, we can delete these keys from the camera, and I'm just going to set these to ease out. So this is the bait camera from 3D as I say, but now we're going to animate it normally in After Effects. Could always animate the green layer pulling back, because obviously these are parented, so that would all work fine, but for this example I'm going to animate the camera. I'd like the new logo, the classic logo, to kind of zoom back and rotate on Z. So first thing I need to do is just set the in point of these layers to be here. Okay, so we can see a little bit of yellow there. First thing to do is fix that. There we go, just move the main green layer and the others follow suit. Shift plus R to bring up the rotation for this layer. Add a key for Z. Move the time slider to the 6-second mark. And now I'm going to set the Z rotation to be -90. I'm also going to just ease into that last key. Now I need to animate the camera pulling back. Now it's going to be a bit difficult to see actually what's going on, so I'm going to switch to 2 views. I find it easier like that. And hold shift actually and could scrub out a little bit faster. So the camera is actually right there, up close. So what we want to do is just drag the Z value so we can see the logo. Probably somewhere around there. Let's have a look. Yeah, that looks okay. So we start here. As we pull back, we get the same kind of rainbowy colours that we were getting before. So there's some continuity there. You can see the logo turn round on its rotation, and the other two layers spring in and out, and we end up with a nice pure white logo. Great stuff. That one was quite simple to do. Now we can move on to the next transition. I'm going to show you in Illustrator what I intend to do there first and how I've set it up. Then we'll bring it into After Effects and go through it. Let's set this back to one view. Okay, I'm just going to have a quick look at the timeline, make sure it's all looking good. Pull this out for a bit. It's just the background for now. We may well change that. Everything else seems to be fine. It's all starting and ending in the correct places. So let's have a look in Illustrator at the next logo and how we're going to bring that in and what sort of treatment it's going to get. Here's the next logo that I want to transition into. I've kind of changed it a little bit, but this is the version that I'm showing you because it's on a black background. So how are we going to come to this? What I'd like to do is draw some lines and then have the logo actually draw itself on. Now there are a few problems with this because obviously it's got some corners like on the N and this bit here on the top of the G and stuff like that, so we're not just going to be able to use a plain old stroke because it won't have the right sort of ends. So let's just close this. Here's a scene that shows how I'd like to transition into that logo. I've mocked it up, it's not exactly precise, but this is more or less how I'd like to do it, and we can fine-tune the positioning once we're in After Effects. But here you can see we have the No Logo Classic, which is in the same position as the logo in our comp currently. And what I've done is I've drawn some lines coming out here. These lines animate across, and then eventually it builds the No Logo out of lines. This is definitely a work in progress document, as you can see, because it's not even complete in here, but that's not important. The only thing I'm really going to use out of here are these lines that come in and reach the logo. I'm going to set up another Illustrator file for the main line logo composition. Now originally what I thought I'd do was bring this line up to the point of this corner and then use the No Logo animation to animate these lines coming on. I did do that once, but you tend to get a really bad seam here, so what I've done instead is I've carried this line along and moved it round there so it draws the green of the O. And the same thing with these. You can see they're just a line with a stroke. I'm going to use shape layers for this, and I'll approach it step by step, but first of all we'll bring these lines in. Then we'll bring in the logo and we'll set up a comp for that. I'm just going to show you how I've set up the Illustrator scene for the logo. Here we go. As you can see, there's the logo made up of lines, and this is one of the lines that will be coming in. Quite a few layers in this file. The way I'm going to approach this is that I'm going to create a matte for each colour, and then use the stroke effect, or actually shape layers with trim paths. And if we set the stroke to be pretty much the same as this, but maybe slightly wider, and we use the matte to cut it out, that way we shouldn't have too many problems going around the corner here, for instance. And the other thing as well is that we'll be able to cut out this part here, and because they're all separate mattes, the green won't infringe on the blue and the blue won't infringe on the red, etc. You could try doing it just with a stroke, but there's not really much chance you'd get parts like this. So that's how we're going to approach it. So first of all, let's go back to the previous Illustrator file. I'm going to take these 3 lines, paste them into a shape layer, and then start working with it from there. Okay, before I paste these in, or copy and paste them, I'm just going to check out that it's all okay. The blue line, I think I was maybe a little bit enthusiastic with that, so I'm just going to drag this point back over here. As we're going to paste them in as paths, we can adjust these points in After Effects anyway. So let's just select these 3. Let's just go to the right tool first. Select these 3 paths and copy. Let's go back to After Effects. Before we can paste them in, we need to create a new shape layer to paste them into. And we're going to have to use the same kind of workaround that we did last week. So I'll just choose New Shape Layer. I'm going to call this Lines. Now we've got 3 paths on the clipboard, so what we need to do is we need to create 3 dummy paths to paste into. I'm just going to trim it to that point and drag it down below my camera. Grab the pen tool, just create a dummy path. Now we can fold this down. Into contents we'll have a path, and I'm just going to delete that, duplicate that 3 times. Fold it open, select the actual paths, and then paste. Okay, that's worked just fine. The next thing to do is to make it 3D and then reposition it so that it's in the right place. As you can see, it's going to need scaling up somewhat. So we just, with all the paths selected, Apple T, and not all the paths are selected, undo. Okay, I made a mistake there, pretty simple one there. Pressed escape by accident. If you notice here, it changes the camera. If you press escape, it jumps back to the active camera. Kind of wondered where my layers had gone for a moment there. But yeah, we're all good to go. So let's just select our paths. Make it 3D again. Apple T. Now we can scale this up. What I want to do is position it so that these points here are just coming out the bottom of the N and the L. Before I get too precise with this though, I just want to check the depth of the layer to make sure that it's at the same layer as the no logo. In fact, I want to put it slightly behind so that the colour comes out from behind. So if we select the green one, press P, we can see that that's at -228. So let's just set this to -228 for now. So you can see I did actually scale it up a little bit too much. That's not a problem. We can just go in, select our paths again, and reposition it and scale it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do that so it's in the right place, and then come back to you. I think that looks about right. So these are pretty much in the centre, so we just need to adjust the stroke. Okay, 51 looks good. Deselect tool. So now I just need to position it so it's slightly behind. And here I've just set the position to be -226, so it's only 2 units difference in the depth. But now the letter will start, the line will start from just slightly behind. So we have our 3 lines, and they're all in one shape layer. Let's just fold down the contents. Okay, so you notice there's one stroke parameter. I'm actually just going to delete the fill parameter from there. We don't need that at all. I'd like to set this to have a round cap so that as it draws on, it's got a rounded end rather than a square end. And the next thing we need to do is set the colour. So at the moment we've got one stroke. If we just duplicate that, so we've got 3, and drag it up so that each one is underneath the path that we want it to affect. Going to open the swatch you want. That's quite handy. It still has the swatch from last time. So stroke 1 I'm going to leave red. Stroke 2, just going to click up here and then I can use the colour picker. Make that green. Now it's changing them all. Undo that. Cancel that. Okay, if we fold this down, we can just pick it from here. I just need to be aware that I'm actually picking the right colour for the right stroke there, so I'm just going to come back here and check. So the top one needs to be blue, then red, then green. If I don't make them right, then they won't end up in the correct place at this end. So it's blue, red, green. So what we can do in here is we can switch paths on and off so we can see which one's which. Okay, so path 2 is the first one, so that actually needs to be blue. So that's cool. The next one needs to be red, which is this one. So stroke path 3 is the last one, and this needs to be green. Okay, cool. So that looks like it's working okay for now. The next thing to do to this layer is to add in trim paths, which is just out of the bottom of the capture area underneath repeater and round corners. Basically this will affect everything that's above it, so if we drag the end point now you can see we have our lines animating on. So the next thing to do would be to animate the camera, so I'm going to kind of set some keys for this end parameter so the line's right on, and as that happens animate the camera moving across. I'm going to leave the trim paths parameter, the end parameter at 100% for now, just so we can see the very end of the lines. We know that this curvy part here is the one of the O's from No Logo, so what we need to do is kind of, just for now, frame that more or less in the centre of the shot. Once we've got the whole No Logo in, we can come back and adjust the camera position so that it's framed more accurately. Now, let's just fold this up for a moment and have a look at our camera. Okay, you could adjust the parameters down here. I find it easier most of the time to adjust them in the comp. Before I move it, I'm just going to move forward to the 7-second mark and zoom in somewhat so I can kind of see what's going on. Okay, so now I press V to get at my normal kind of live select tool, hold shift and I can drag the camera across. Can't actually see exactly how it's framed in this window because we can't see all of it, so let's just pull that out slightly, come back in here and reselect our camera. Could probably go a little bit further. Okay, let's just say there for now. One thing you might have noticed is that we've got some really nice curves going on here with our path. See, it's causing a sort of curvy motion for the No Logo rather than it going straight back. Sometimes you may want that, other times you don't. I don't particularly in this instance, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the interpolation. So if you just select the keys involved, right click, choose keyframe interpolation, and then here what we want to adjust is the spatial interpolation. This affects the shape of the path in the comp window, and I'm just going to set that to linear. And now if you look at the paths here, when I click OK, boom, we lose that kind of Bezier interpretation that we had before. Sometimes that's what you need, sometimes that's not. That's probably the best way to change it. So here's a quick RAM preview just of that section. As I said, we can adjust the camera later once we've got the logo in. Now we can come in and animate the trim paths parameter. So here I want it to be 100% on end, press I to go to the beginning of that layer. drag it down to 0, select them both and then press F9 so it eases. Now as we scrub through, you can see our paths draw on. So that's all in place. Now it's a case of bringing in the no logo line logo and setting the comp up for that. Let's have a look in Illustrator at the file we're going to use for that. Okay, you can see that I've got quite a few layers and I've got some mats and I've got some splines. So what I intend to do here is, you can see there's the mat for the blue and there's the kind of spline for it, or the path should we say. So if we select that, you can see that it's just a centre line with a stroke. So we can paste this in as shape layers and then we can use the mat above to mat out the edges so that we get the shape exactly right. And I've done that for each path. So let's just switch all those on and then go back into After Effects, and I'm going to import that as a comp. I've brought that in as a comp and I brought it in document size. I didn't want to trim it to each layer. This is set up at 1024 by 576, which is the right size. Just going to call it line logo. Open that up. Okay, we can go back to one view now. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the layers that aren't needed. So that's all these spline layers. I'm going to leave the master in there because that will kind of give me a guide of where everything has to be for now, and I can always switch it off later. And then the other layers that are in here are the mats. You can't actually see anything at the moment because I kind of did them inverted, but if we look at the alpha channel you can see that they've all got an alpha. Like so. So the next thing to do is to select all the paths we need, bring them in and put them onto some separate shape layers. We're going to need a separate shape layer for each item that's being matted. So let's get back into Illustrator. I've switched all the layers on for the items that we need to copy. We need to make sure that we set the same number of paths in After Effects to paste them into. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But if you notice on the blue spline, there's actually 2 paths there. Let's just check the others. So there's actually 6 paths altogether. So if we copy those and go back to After Effects. Back in After Effects here, I've created a shape layer and I've created a dummy path. So I'm going to duplicate that 6 times. If we select those and fold them down, we can select all the paths, he says, and then paste. Okay, it all looks good. Let's just reduce our stroke down. For now, I'm going to set that to say 15. Once we have them being matted, we'll be able to adjust the weight of that accordingly. Now it's a good idea to kind of name these so we know what's what. Although there's only 6 paths, it could still get quite confusing quite quickly. And we have a master layer underneath, which I'm just going to move over to one side for now so I can see which colour corresponds to which line. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and just name each one of these paths so it's got the correct name. It'll just make things a lot easier for me in the long run when I'm trying to decipher which one's which. The easiest way to do that is to simply just switch them on and off here, and then you can see which one's which. So they're all renamed, they've all got the appropriate colour and which part of the letters they're referring to. So the next thing to do would just be to adjust any parameters on here that we want to be global, or in other words the same on all the paths, because we're going to have to duplicate this shape layer. So the first thing is to adjust the stroke. What I want to do is just set that to have a round cap, so it's the same as the lines that are drawing on. The other thing we need to do is make sure that the stroke width is appropriate. So to do that, we're going to have to map this layer and use that as a kind of reference point. So if we pick the blue mat and just put that above, and we just set this to alpha inverted. Okay, they haven't lined up properly, that's not a problem. What we need to do is just reposition our shape layer. I'm going to just recenter the master layer first. Okay, so the master layer is back in the centre of the comp. If we switch on our blue mat layer, we can see that lines up perfectly okay. So the problem is with the shape layer, the paths aren't in the right place. I'm not sure why they didn't paste exactly right. They should have done. It's probably a slight mistake on my part, but you know, these things happen when you're working, and you just need to have ways of solving problems like that. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to select all the paths. If you click on the word, it actually selects all the points and makes them active. And now I can just nudge this across until it's in the right place, which is somewhere around there. So now they're in the right place, we should be able to check that our mat's working correctly. Switch off the master layer, and we can see that shape layer isn't working badly at all. We've got these nice sharp corners here. Let's add the trim paths effect. Drop that down, scrub our end value. Okay, we've got a slight problem here. That's the other path that's interfering. That'll be on a different layer eventually anyway, so that doesn't really matter. The other issue is, if you notice here, there's a slight kink. And I presume if we scrub back, we'll get another one. Yeah, you kind of get a little bit here before it comes round. So we may need to adjust the width of the stroke slightly. Let's just set it to 14. I think we can probably get away with that. Okay, I need these shape layers to be separate now. That seems to be working okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split it up into the correct number of shape layers. I've just moved all the timeline and everything up so I can see what's going on. Before I duplicate it, I just wanted to kind of point out it's probably a good idea to just keep one master layer in case you make any mistakes, delete the wrong thing, something like that. Then you can always come back to your master layer without having to repaste and reposition everything. So first I'm just going to duplicate that layer and drag it right to the bottom here and just hide it. So the first layer here we can call shape blue. Fold down the stroke. And let's select the blue colour. Okay. We can now select these paths and just delete them. What I need to do is just select both of these layers and duplicate it again. And then in the bottom one, delete one blue path. And in the top one, delete the other blue path. So now we have the O and the kind of NOO, both on separate layers. And they're using the same mat, that's fine, they're not going to kind of interfere with each other. Let's just scrub that value. And that seems to be working fine. And the same with the other blue line. Okay. Let's just fold these up. Duplicate our main shape there again. This time I'm going to do the green, so I'll just pull this up under here. It's already set to alpha inverted matte. Let's switch that on. It's red at the moment, so we can call this shape layer shape green G. Fold it down. We've labelled all our paths, which is cool, so we can just delete the other paths. Open up the stroke and again select the correct colour. So rather than me sit here and do this for every single layer in the comp, I shall perform that operation for you now, and I'll be back shortly. Something I should point out with this actual shape, and if you do follow along then you probably will get the same scene, the same Illustrator files that I'm working with. If you remember correctly, on here we actually changed it and the O is part of this line now, so this is in fact incorrect. We just need it to start from this point here, so none of this is needed. So if I just press V, sorry, I need to just open up the path. There we go. Let's just select the points that aren't needed. There we go. So that's now correct. The other line will come along, cover that over, and it will go around there. So I've set that up. Now we've got all the colours, all the separate components on their own layers, all matted, etc. It's just a matter of animating the trim paths parameter for each one. Before we do that, it's a good idea to take this into the main comp and just position it and set it up so everything is working as expected. It'd be a bit of a shame to get too far and then realise we've made a fundamental error. So before I do that, I'm going to save the project, and then we'll check that that's all working okay. Go back to the main comp. We have our shape lines here. I think I want to put it above that, so let's just drag in the line logo. I want to set it to be 3D. I can see in here that it's in totally the wrong place and it's much too small. That's fine. The other thing I want to do is continually rasterise. Okay, because I've done that, it's brought it back as a 2D layer, because it's kind of effectively it's collapsed transformations. Even though they're shape layers, it's collapsing it down, so it's bringing it in as 2D. So let's go back to our line logo, press F4, select everything, set it to continually rasterise. Although shape layers will continually rasterise anyway, our mattes are all Illustrator files, so we want those to do that as well. And then set everything to be 3D. Now when we come back to our main comp, yeah, it's set with it back down here again, so that all should work fine. We can pull this over. Now the first thing to do before we adjust any size and things like that is just make sure that it's on the right Z depth. So this is on -226, so let's set this to -226. Okay, so that's essentially the same Z value. I think it needs to be slightly in front, but only a very small amount. So I'm just going to set it to -230. Okay, we can come back to one view for now. So really it's just a case of scaling this up and positioning it in the right place. We've got the red line here and the green to guide us, so it shouldn't be too tricky. If we say a scale of say 350 for now, let's just pull this up. Okay, that doesn't look right because the weight of the line isn't high enough. Still not quite right. What I'll do is I'll adjust that and then I'll come back and show you the parameters that I've used. Okay, I've set it to 355. I think that looks about right. I've positioned it and it looks kind of okay to me. The only thing that's wrong is this circle that I've added in. As I said, that was a kind of last minute decision, and I can see that it's caused me a problem already. It's not to worry. What we can do is we can just select these points on this path and we can just scale those up. I can see it's got to fit through there, and there needs to be the same kind of pixel border between the two elements. So if I just come back to my shape lines layer, open up the contents. Okay, this is where it's really handy to name the colours and name your paths, which I haven't. But there we go, it's that one. So that's cool. So I'm just going to select the points and move them accordingly. By selecting the points and then choosing Apple T, you get your free transform tool, and then we can position this where we want it to be, which is something like this. Okay, and I think the other thing that needs to happen is it all just needs to be lower. So I'm just going to shift select these other points, and we can pull the whole thing down. That's looking a lot more like it now. Cool. I've just selected these bottom points of the path and kind of moved that down as well. I'm probably going to select this blue one and just move that up. I'll move it down actually, and the red also needs adjusting. So although I drew it all in Illustrator as their paths, it's pretty easy to adjust in here as well. So let me just reposition all of those, and then I'll show you where I've got to. I've pulled the blue right down for now, and I've moved the red over slightly. Now I'm just going to select this end point, press G for the pen tool, and then continue that path along. Go back to my selection tool, and I can select these, and I can just nudge this down. I want that red line to carry on across. I'm just going to move the blue as well, so that's slightly off. And if we zoom out with that point selected, we can select this end, and now we can nudge our blue layer up. Not quite that far. So that looks good. I may well need to adjust the camera more as we bring this into the centre of the comp. I may need to adjust these points on this path as well. First of all, let's just do the camera. I mean, I don't mind that there. I think what should happen is it should kind of get to there, and then as this writes on, it should be moving across. So once it's fully written on, it will be in the centre. So let's just jump forward 20 frames. Switch to the two views. Okay, I'm just going to adjust the camera. Well, don't quite want to zoom in that far. If you hold shift, it kind of moves much bigger increments. So if you tend to find things crawling around when you're dragging them in the 3D view, just press shift and it will move 10 times as much. So now, I've made the same mistake as last time. I can't see how well it's framed. That's better. Really good. And there we go. Let's just bring up our crosshair so we can see what's going on. That doesn't look too bad at all. Obviously, for the sake of a tutorial, I'm not being 100% accurate. You guys can be a lot more precise when you do it. The next thing to do will be to animate the no logo writing on. I'm just going to come down to these shape lines here. Okay, so I want path 2 and path 1. I'm just going to select these 2 points and pull that over. So as the camera pulls across, the ends aren't visible. So the last thing to do is just to animate the stroke on the no logo. Let's just do a preview and see where we've got to, make sure it's all working. Right, so there's a preview of it. You can see that at the moment the camera's a bit jerky. We need to sort that out. Other than that, it looks cool. Just need to write on or animate the trim paths for the no logo line logo. So let's have a look at the camera. Okay. I think the best thing to do here would possibly be just to delete these keys and then put a massive ease in onto these so that it reaches that point and it's nearly in place and it just gradually eases across. So that's just what I'm going to do. First of all, I'm going to delete these two keys and I'm going to go to that point in time. Now I need to adjust these keys here so that this is much further over. If we select to show the graph for these two and then bring up the graph, we can see some curves to represent the velocity, etc. If we take this handle, which is kind of like the Bezier curve, the end of this position curve, and if we press shift, drag that along till we're about there. So this movement here will be much faster and then it will ease more there. So let's just see what that looks like. Okay, that looks much better. So now finally we just need to animate the write-on effect and I think we're done. Let's close the graph editor for now and unselect these. Here's a quick preview of that part so you can see the camera ease. Seems to be working okay. So let's stop that, jump back into our line logo comp, and here we can animate the write-on effect. We can adjust the timing in the main comp. I reckon about a second to do that, so I'm just going to jump to the second point and then I'm going to set a key for the end parameter for each one of the paths. Now I've done that, you can select all the layers, Control A, press U, tidy up the timeline a bit because we can just see those keys. I want to go to the beginning and I'm just going to set that to 0. Okay, I just need to do that for all of these. And let's select the last set of keys, press F9 so it eases in. Now that should write on all the letters, which it does. Groovy. Let's go back to the main comp and just see how that stands timing wise. Okay, they're drawing on far too soon. Now the reason for that is because this layer is not trimmed to the right point in time, so let's just pull it up. There we go, we can see when it starts to write on. What I want it to do is as this green line comes across this corner here, to start writing on then. So let's just nudge forward in time. So it's somewhere around here. Pull this layer back. The reason for that is because of this hole in the red. I want the green line to have gone all the way around before that red bit is there. So let's say there. Let's just scrub through. There you go. Okay, so that all seems to have worked. So I think that's it for this week. Let's have a round preview of everything we've done, and if it's all okay, great stuff. If not, we'll have a look and see what the problems are. Fingers crossed. Okay, so here's a round preview of where we are so far. I've previewed it from the beginning so you can see the additions we've done this week. So this week we've continued the transition using the classic no logo. We've used the kind of springy expression, and then we've copied and pasted paths from Illustrator, and we've also used some mats that we created to draw on the no logo line at the end. Next week we'll finish this project. What we're going to do is we're going to end up going back into a 3D camera move, and then we're going to go through and just polish it all slightly, add a few little extras in, and then get it ready for output. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed it, see you next week.